But we got good news. We got the big news that we've been wanting to get all offseason, all preseason here, just saying, the Browns are looking to bring in a guy like Brandon Ayuk. We're in trade rumors and things here and there throughout the offseason. When are we signing JOK? Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah has been a stud linebacker for the Cleveland Browns. And, I especially have detailed constantly on this show how Andrew Berry and the Cleveland Browns front office just simply does not place a high priority. I know some of you guys had a problem with me saying a high value or whatever, but you know what I'm saying. A high priority on spending big money or allocating high draft capital to the linebacker position. They kind of view that as more of a plug and play, rotate guys through that position type of scenario. But JOK, from the second he was drafted, was the one guy at the linebacker position that has bucked that entire trend for the Browns. They traded up in the draft in the second round. First of all, they never draft a linebacker in the second round. They drafted in the second round, and they never trade up in the draft. If you've noticed with Andrew Berry, if they trade, it's back. And the last 2 years, they just sit where they are and make selections, let guys fall to them. So they traded up in the second round to draft Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, and it has panned out greatly. He had a good rookie season, I believe, if I'm looking at stats right. His sophomore season down a little, but you got to remember that was the Joe Woods defense. And then when he got Jim Schwartz in here as the defensive coordinator, we beefed up that defensive line. We actually had competent players and a competent coach who knew how to execute on that defensive line. JOK just had a massive breakout season for the Cleveland Browns, and now he continues to buck that trend by getting an extension, and a very big one for the linebacker position. So again, he is the exception to the rule at the linebacker position in Cleveland. So JOK signs a 3-year, $39 million extension with $25 million guaranteed. That puts him at $13 million and some change, whatever, average annual salary, makes him the 6th highest paid linebacker in the NFL. Big move for the Browns just considering the position. I can't harp on that enough. For JOK at the linebacker position to garner this much cap allocation, this much priority by the Browns just shows that not only was he very successful on the field, but the Browns believe in him. They believe in what he's able to provide for the defense. They believe he's going to continue to get even better. And, when we see Andrew Berry issue out these contracts and things, 6th highest paid linebacker in the league, more times than not, the dude is getting out ahead of the market for certain types of players. You look at David Njoku, we use as an example all the time, was one of the highest paid tight ends when the Browns extended him, and everybody's like, whoa, wait, why? He hasn't really done that much yet. Are you kidding? Well, look at David Njoku now. It's a steal what we have him on the roster for cap allocation wise. So Andrew Berry rarely gets these things wrong. I know a lot of these trolls out there on social media just still hate Andrew Berry for some reason. But, at the beginning of the season or even last offseason, we had a lot of people saying, hey, Browns are in cap hell next year. There's no way they're going to be able to sign anybody. They're going to lose all their good players, all because of Deshaun Watson's contract. Well, we have lost precisely 0 of our good players. We've re-signed a lot of our good players that we wanted. We've traded for and extended other players, and now we just continue to add to that. So again, Cap Experts Online, you guys are really, really running out of ammo. You don't have a whole lot left in the bag to throw out there because you've been proven wrong every step of the way. Andrew Berry in this Cleveland Browns front office is different. It's why he got extended, and it's why the Browns are one of the best run organizations right now in the NFL. And yes, that does feel very weird to say. So back in February, I did a bunch of I did breakdowns for all the different positions. Linebacker was one of them. So I'm just going to go through a few notes, and this was obviously prior to JOK getting extended, but I did a deep dive into each player. So we'll go through some quick notes, not all of them, but on JOK, a couple just team notes. And this goes back to that salary thing. In 2020, the Browns allocated 8% of their cap to the linebacker position. 2021, just 4%. 2022, 4.3%. And in 2023, the Browns spent 4.9% of the cap on the linebacker position. So when AB came in here as the GM in his first year, that cap space allocation was 8%. And since then, cut it in half. It's been 4. Last year it was up close to 5, but still almost in half from what it was. So again, this just reiterates paying JOK just tells me they really believe in what this guy can be for the Browns moving forward. And what was he in 2023? Played all 16 games for the team. And yes, I know there are 17 games, but week 18 against the Bengals didn't count. We played all backups. It was essentially a 4th preseason game, and we know how those go. Pretty damn boring. So in 2023, JOK, let's see, we're going to talk about some PFF numbers. Among linebackers with 350 snaps played, that gave me 78 qualifying linebackers. JOK had a 75.2 defense grade. That was 19th overall. 68.9 run defense. That was 40th. 84.1 pass rush grade. 5th best among all those 78 qualifying linebackers. He generated 16 total pressures. That was the 18th most. He had a 69.8 coverage grade. That was 23rd. And he had 53 stops. That was 12th among all those linebackers. And a note here that I put in, defensive stops equals a tackle that constitutes a failure for the offense. So JOK had 53 of those such tackles, 12th most among linebackers. He allowed 37 receptions on 44 targets for 263 yards and 3 touchdowns, 7.1 yards per reception. That was the 6th lowest. And so when I did Grant Delpit's review in the safeties podcast episode, a lot of short passes. So that's why you see 37 receptions on 44 targets. There were, when JOK was getting targeted, allocated with these targets per PFF, a lot of screens, a lot of short passes, a lot of stuff behind the line of scrimmage. Yak, he allowed 220 yak yards, so 220 of his 263 yards came after the catch. That's 84% of the total. If you look at the game logs, his yards allowed are 10, 0, -2. And then he has a 35, 9, 27, and then a 4, 12, 4, 7, 12, 0. So that stretch right there, teams were not moving the ball through the air anywhere close to Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. And then to end the season, he did have kind of a rough stretch, 34 yards, 44 yards, 24, 43. And those were the games after Anthony Walker was placed on IR. So I put in here a note from back in February. Walker being on IR had a big negative impact on the defense overall. JOK had 2 interceptions. That was tied for the 7th most in the NFL. 3 linebackers had 4, 3 linebackers had 3, and 6 linebackers had 2. JOK was one of the linebackers with 2. His snap breakdown, 589 snaps in the box, 104 on the defensive line, 44 in the slot, and 10 snaps played on the outside. Okay, and so what did all, that was a lot of the PFF deeper metrics on JOK, but what did those metrics garner that, the box score is going to tell you? Well, JOK had 101 tackles. He was the leading tackler on the Browns last year, 101 tackles, 72 solo, 29 assists. He had 20 tackles for loss. That was a huge number. In fact, 20 tackles for loss put him at 4th most in the entire NFL among all defenders, not just linebackers. In terms of linebackers, yeah, it looks like he was the number 1 linebacker in the NFL for tackles for loss. The 3 guys ahead of him, Max Crosby at 23, Danielle Hunter also had 23, and Khalil Mack had 21. And then JOK sitting right there at the 4 spot with 20, ahead of TJ Watt, Micah Parsons, Levante David, Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa. JOK was a behind-the-line tackling machine, and that was that's the stat that was so impressive to me. He also tacked on 3.5 sacks to go with it. He was a monster. And if, all Browns fans, we all know, in the playoff game down in Houston against the Texans, JOK was pretty much the only guy on defense to show up and play the way that the Browns defense had been playing all season, at least the way that they were capable of playing. We know that on the road last year, they were significantly worse, but still, JOK showed up. He showed up, and Now he got paid. So he's here. We've locked him up. Our core group of guys is here for a while. So we just need to make sure we're taking advantage of this win now competitive Super Bowl window that we're in. And I mean, this is already a very exciting time for Browns fans, but things could get even better. So congrats to JOK. Can't wait to see you back out there on the field this year. I am so excited to watch this defense.